Hey, welcome to a new video. Everyone makes mistakes in life, but some mistakes have far-reaching consequences. From adventurers getting lost in the jungle to mysterious disappearances of influential figures, these stories illustrate how wrong decisions can end dramatically. Are you new to this channel? Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And before we start, also like the video. Meet Yossi Ginsburg, an adventurer from Israel famous for a survival story when he was stranded for 3 weeks in an uncharted part of the Amazon jungle in Bolivia in 1981. His adventure is chronicled in his international bestseller, Jungle, which was later adapted into a film starring Daniel Radcliffe. In 1981, Yossi, a 22-year-old backpacker, embarked on an adventure into the Amazon rainforest. He was accompanied by 3 companions: Kevin Gale, an American photographer, Marcus Stamm, a Swiss teacher, and Karl Ruprechter, an Austrian man who claimed to be a geologist. Drawn by tales of hidden treasures and indigenous tribes, they set out in search of gold and adventure. After a few weeks, their food supplies dwindled and tensions ran high. They decided to split up. Kevin and Yossi continued on a raft, while Carl and Marcus attempted to hike out of the jungle. This separation marked the beginning of Yossi's harrowing solo experience. Navigating the rapids of the Tuichi River, their raft hit a rock, separating him from Kevin. Now alone and without supplies, he faced the immense challenge of survival in the dense, perilous jungle. He encountered numerous threats, including poisonous snakes, insects, and dangerous animals. He also suffered from severe infection and starvation, but thankfully, after 3 weeks, he was rescued by indigenous inhabitants and eventually returned to civilization. In 2019, a dramatic and challenging operation was undertaken to rescue 6 university students trapped in Cyclops Cave in Russell County, Virginia. On April 28, 2019, these 6 students entered Cyclops Cave for an exploratory adventure. Cyclops Cave is known for its narrow, winding passages and can be a significant challenge for even experienced cave explorers. The students, aged between 18 and 22, became trapped after heavy rainfall made the cave entrance and passages dangerously slick and even partially flooded. They were unable to exit the cave due to exhaustion, hypothermia, and the hazardous conditions. The rescue operation began when the group did not return as expected, prompting a concerned family member to alert authorities. The complex nature of Cyclops Cave has required a specialized response, and the rescue effort involved various agencies. They assessed the situation and determined the students were approximately 118 feet underground, about 4,900 feet from the cave entrance. After an extensive 10-hour rescue operation, all 6 students were successfully brought to the surface. Rescuers used a combination of ropes and other equipment to safely guide the students through the perilous passages. Despite the physical and mental strain, the students were rescued without serious injuries. Michael Rockefeller, son of New York Governor Nelson Rockefeller, disappeared during an expedition in New Guinea while collecting artifacts from the Asmat tribe. His disappearance remains one of the most intriguing mysteries in the 20th century. At the age of 23 in 1961, Michael joined an expedition to Dutch New Guinea to document art from the region's indigenous cultures. During his time in New Guinea, Michael became fascinated by the Asmat, known for their intricate wood carvings and complex cultural practices. On November 17, 1961, he traveled along the coast with Dutch anthropologist René Wassing, and they were in a 40-foot-long dugout canoe when it capsized about 12.5 miles offshore. Convinced he could swim to the shore, Michael said, "I think I can make it," and swam towards the coast, leaving René behind. However, René was later rescued, but Michael was never seen again. Despite extensive searches by Dutch authorities, the Rockefeller family, and even local tribes, no trace of Michael was ever found. It's believed he drowned, though another theory suggests Michael may have reached the shore but was killed by the local tribe members. J.R. Smith's crucial mistake during Game 1 of the 2018 NBA Finals is one of the most memorable moments in recent NBA history. The incident occurred on May 31, 2018, when the Cleveland Cavs faced off against the Golden State Warriors. The Cavaliers, led by LeBron James, were up against the reigning champs, the Golden State Warriors, featuring stars like Stephen Curry and Kevin Durant. With the score tied and only 4.7 seconds left on the clock, Cavs guard George Hill was at the free throw line. Hill made the first free throw but missed the second. J.R. Smith grabbed the offensive rebound, giving the Cavaliers a crucial opportunity to win the game in regulation. However, instead of attempting a shot or passing the ball to an open teammate, Smith dribbled away from the basket. LeBron James, visibly confused and frustrated, tried to signal to Smith, but time ran out before the Cavs could attempt another shot. Smith's mistake led to the game going into overtime, where the Warriors dominated the Cavaliers and won 124-114. In May 2014, rescue teams in Utah undertook a daring rescue mission under dangerous conditions to save a man stranded on a hoodoo. A hoodoo is a narrow rock formation located thousands of feet above a canyon in Long Canyon, Utah. The man had jumped onto the rock formation, injuring his ankle and making it impossible to jump back. Grand County Emergency Services were called to Pucker Pass in Long Canyon to assist. To reach the stranded man, rescue teams rigged ropes and placed a 5-foot ladder across the fork in a 6-foot gap. A rescuer crawled across the ladder to reach the man, provided medical care, and then crawled back across the ladder, a process that took about 3 hours. On Saturday morning, an anonymous 91-year-old woman asked her local bank in Western France for access to her personal safe deposit box. The usual procedure led to an employee accidentally locking her in it. The clerk had somehow forgotten about the woman. The elderly woman had no phone and no way to call for help until the bank reopened Tuesday morning. Fortunately, her son noticed she had not come home, and on Sunday morning, police found her sitting in the dark vault. Sam Bankman-Fried is the founder of FTX, a cryptocurrency exchange that suffered a significant collapse, impacting thousands of investors. FTX's downfall was attributed to poor management and alleged fraudulent activities, resulting in serious consequences for both the exchange and its users. Sam Bankman-Fried faced criminal charges, including accusations of stealing customers' funds, foreign bribery, and conspiracy to commit bank fraud. He was found guilty and sentenced to 25 years in prison, with an order to repay billions of dollars. Customers of FTX suffered losses totaling $8 billion. In response to the devastating impact of these losses, an $11 billion forfeiture order was imposed, authorizing the government to seize assets to compensate victims affected by the collapse. This is probably the longest cigarette break in history, that of 34-year-old Nicholas White, who was working late Friday night in New York. When he returned to his office on the 39th floor, the elevator came to a screeching halt, trapping him for a total of 41 hours. All he had with him were cigarettes. He had no water, no food, and no phone. He also did not know when it was day or night. As we see on the surveillance footage, he was pacing and panicking because of his claustrophobia. He was only discovered 2 days later. In 1993, Emile Larrey left for the Sahara aboard a Citroën 2CV. These are widely used vehicles in North Africa that allow you to drive around the desert for a long time. But the brave Larrey went to extremes when he took another route. He accidentally bumped into a rock that damaged the chassis of his car, causing his engine to fail. He couldn't walk back because the city was too far away. But after a night's sleep, the next day, he decided to build a motorcycle out of the broken parts. He used the hood as a shelter while he was in the desert. After 12 days of work, he successfully built a motorcycle out of the tools and parts. So he managed to get out of the desert safely and later received an award for his incredible achievement. It's a pretty terrifying thought that anyone can get stuck in the street like this. This teenage girl's slip in Zunyi City in China led to the fire department getting involved. The space between the two steel beams in which her leg was stuck was only about 3 inches or 8 centimeters wide. Firefighters ended up having to cut open the bars and do their best to protect her from the sparks. Cesar Milan, also known as the Dog Whisperer, has faced significant controversy in his career, especially regarding his training methods. A notable moment occurred in 2006 when he applied a controversial training technique to a Labrador retriever named Holly. Cesar's training approach often involves the use of dominance theory, an older training technique that emphasizes the owner acting as the pack leader. In the specific incident, he was bitten by the dog as he attempted to assert dominance using physical control methods, which Holly aggressively reacted to. Cesar's mistake was misjudging Holly's fear and using an approach that increased her stress rather than calming her down. After the incident, Cesar continued working with Holly, focusing on building trust and using less confrontational techniques, which eventually led to her improvement. This is probably every amusement park visitor's worst nightmare, getting stuck in an attraction. Worse than that is being stuck upside down. More than 60 people on the flying dinosaur ride at Japan's Universal Studios wish they had not entered the attraction that day. In fact, they were stuck for 2 hours, and the distance from the ground was about 88 feet, or 27 meters. Poon Lim is the record holder who survived the longest on a raft at sea. His story dates from 1942, when the ship he was in was sunk by a torpedo. There were 55 crew members on board, of which 11 were rescued by other ships. Poon grabbed the nearest life jacket and continued swimming for about 2 hours until he saw a floating wooden raft and he sat on it. Luckily for him, the raft contained dried cookies, 10 gallons or 40 liters of water, chocolates, and some electric torches. But he knew his supplies wouldn't last long, so he applied his survival skills and caught rainwater with a cloth. He made small fish hooks from threads on the stove and a knife from the cookie tin. He floated in the South Atlantic Ocean for 133 days until 3 fishermen found his raft and rescued him. Being stuck somewhere on land is already terrifying, but in an underwater cave? That's definitely every swimmer's worst nightmare. Cisco Gracia, a geology teacher, was exploring the Sapakita cave system with a friend when they got lost. With a dwindling oxygen supply, he sent the friend for help and found a small pocket of air to breathe. However, it was mostly oxygen with a high carbon dioxide content. He spent 60 hours in the air pocket and was eventually rescued. In August 2019, a man named Sambora became trapped between 2 large rocks in the jungle of Cambodia while collecting bat guano. The incident occurred in the Chakri Mountain jungle in the northwest of the country. Sambora, then 28 years old, fell into a small space between the rocks while trying to retrieve his flashlight that had fallen into the crevice. Bat guano, also known as bat droppings, is collected by farmers in Cambodia and used as fertilizer for their crops. It is a common practice for farmers to gather this as an additional source of income. When Sambora didn't return home after 3 days, his family became concerned and began searching for him. His brother eventually found him and alerted the authorities, leading to a rescue operation to free him from his precarious situation. Here you have the story of a prisoner's escape. He, along with 4 other prisoners, had planned to escape from their cell through a hole in the wall made with a metal shower pipe. The first man got through just fine, but when Rafael Valletta tried to pass series, he got stuck halfway through. His screams alerted the guards, and the escape attempt was foiled for the rest of them. The Croatian Man, Frank Salak, is both the happiest and the unhappiest man alive. Almost like a cat, he seems to have 7 lives. In 1962, he was aboard a train that was derailed and crashed into an ice-cold river. Frayne, however, managed to survive this. The next year, he had his first and only plane ride, when suddenly the plane's door was blown out. He fell out of the plane and miraculously landed on a haystack. 3 years later, the bus he was in skidded off the road into a river. Then in 1970, his car caught fire. In 1995, he was hit by a bus, and a year later, his car crashed into a 90-meter deep ravine after avoiding a truck. He was rescued after clinging to a tree. But the good thing was that Frayne won the lottery in 2003, with a total of $825,000 or 700,000 euros. What a lucky guy. Not only Santa fits down the chimney. In 2014, a California woman was arrested when she got stuck halfway down the chimney of the man she was dating. At the time, they had met online and only had 6 dates. What she hoped to accomplish went awry when she had to call emergency services on herself. The fire department had to break open the chimney with a jackhammer, and the rescue took 2 hours. I don't think there's a 7th date after that. During the 1929 Rose Bowl, Roy Riegels, a player for the University of California, Berkeley, made an unforgettable mistake. After recovering a loose ball, he inexplicably ran 65 yards in the wrong direction toward his own team's end zone. His teammate and quarterback, Benny Lam, chased after him and desperately tried to stop him, but to no avail. This incident became known as the wrong way run, and is often cited as one of the greatest blunders in American football history. Roy's mistake contributed to California's margin of defeat in the Rose Bowl, which they lost 8-7 to Georgia Tech. Blake and Neil Stanfield were on a nature excursion down the Keokuk River in Alaska when, out of nowhere, the water they were rafting through turned icy cold. They ended up in the depths, and when they tried to get out, a layer of ice covered the surface. Between the water and the ice, they could breathe little oxygen. The current dragged them violently, and according to Blake, time stood still for them. They eventually managed to get out, and he left his father to find help. It took 5 days without food before the helicopter rescue came. When Matt Sutter was 19 years old, he watched the news on television when he heard loud noises outside. As he looked through the window of the caravan, which he shared with his grandmother and uncle, he realized that a tornado was coming towards him. He tried to close one of the windows when the tornado sucked him out. A big glass lamp landed on his head and left him unconscious while he was spinning around inside of the tornado. According to a meteorologist, Matt's unconsciousness may have helped him survive the tornado when he went with the current and avoided other debris. He eventually woke up in a lawn about 1,300 feet or 398 meters from the caravan. This gave Matt the record for the longest distance to be blown away by a tornado. All of the ways a thief can be caught, there aren't many where people would laugh outright. 32-year-old Shawn learned a valuable lesson when he tried to break into a Bayshore dentist's office when he got stuck in the air conditioning. For 3 hours he was stuck. The thief claimed he was looking for his cat, Sparkles, instead of trying to break in. Do you believe that? The Battle of Karansebes, believed to have occurred on September 17, 1788 during the Austro-Turkish War, is infamous for an incident of friendly fire. On the evening of September 17th, a cavalry soldier crossed the Timis River to scout for Ottoman forces. Instead, they encountered local Roma selling alcohol. Some of the cavalrymen bought and consumed the alcohol, leading to drunkenness and chaos. Due to the confusion caused by the intoxicated cavalrymen, several units of the Austrian army began firing at each other. This resulted in self-inflicted casualties and serious disruption to their own baggage train. Exploiting the situation, the Ottomans seized the city of Karansebes with little resistance. Water slides with a hatch that sinks under your feet is pretty terrifying to many people. Others actually find these to be the most fun kind of attractions out there. But what if things don't go according to plan? This happened to a boy who got into the capsule, followed the instructions, but still got stuck. He panicked a little and was cold. The door refused to open and he stood there for several minutes, but luckily they finally managed to get the door open again. When Austin Bohannon was 18 years old, he took a walk with his stepfather in Great Smoky Mountains National Park when they were suddenly separated. His stepfather managed to get out of the forest, but Austin couldn't find his way back. When they separated, Austin climbed to the top of a ridge and tried to scream for help, but unfortunately, his calls were not heard. He had to spend the night at the top of the mountain. According to him, he also heard a helicopter passing by and tried to attract his attention, but through the dense forest, he wasn't noticed. More than 100 people were called to help find him. On the 11th day, Austin luckily managed to walk out of the forest himself, and he had survived by drinking only water. Ryan Reynolds is a popular Canadian actor who was buried alive in a wooden coffin in the 2010 film Buried. He lay there with nothing but a lighter, flashlight, and a phone. When he described the experience to David Letterman, Ryan revealed that he really had been buried there, and that there were a few moments when he passed out due to lack of oxygen and claustrophobia. The bizarre thing is that the movie is said to be based on a real story of an American truck driver named Paul Conroy. Yasuko Namba, an experienced Japanese mountaineer, made a critical mistake during her ascent of Mount Everest in 1996. On May 10, 1996, she reached the summit of Everest, becoming the oldest woman to do so at that time. However, she was still high on the mountain late in the afternoon, and was descending when a severe snowstorm struck. Yasuko, along with fellow climber Beck Weathers, their guide Mike Groom, and a few others, became stranded at the South Col due to a whiteout that prevented them from finding their camp. Despite running out of oxygen, Yasuko insisted on putting on her oxygen mask. Tragically, she did not survive the descent and perished during the 1996 Mount Everest disaster, which claimed the lives of 8 climbers. Namba's body was found by fellow climbers, and a cairn was built around her by guide Anatoly Bukriv. One of the most terrifying places you can get stuck in is cement. But how can this happen, you may think? Authorities responded to a call that a man was trapped up to his waist and chest in a cement mixer. The rescue operation took more than 2 hours to drag him out. Eventually, they attached him to a chest harness and pulled him out via a rope system and a ladder. Anna Bagen home went skiing with 2 friends in the mountains outside Narvik, Norway on the evening of May 20th, 1999. On the way down, she lost control of her skis and fell on a 50-inch or 20-centimeter layer of ice. She was dragged under it, and when her friends found her, only her feet and skis were above the ice. Luckily, Anna found an air pocket underneath her and used it to stay conscious. But it took about 80 minutes before the rescuers arrived. At that moment, Anna had fainted and had body temperatures of 56.6 degrees Fahrenheit or 13.7 degrees Celsius. When she arrived at the hospital, her heart stopped pumping. But the doctors hoped that her brain could still respond, so they attached her to a pulmonary heart device. After 24 hours, her heart started up again, and after 12 days, Anna regained consciousness. On August 8, 1974, Nixon delivered a nationally televised speech announcing his resignation as president the following day due to the Watergate scandal. The Watergate events began with a break-in at the Democratic National Committee headquarters and evolved into a complex web of political espionage, cover-ups, and abuse of power. Nixon was the 37th president of the United States, serving from 1969 to 1974. The Watergate scandal began on June 17, 1972, when several burglars were arrested at the Watergate complex in Washington, D.C. These burglars were linked to Nixon's re-election campaign and caught in the act of wiretapping phones and stealing documents. The administration attempted to obstruct justice by paying hush money to the burglars, pressuring the FBI to halt its investigation and destroying evidence. An interesting fact is that Nixon is the only U.S. president to have resigned from office. In 1988, Australian filmmaker Andrew Wright, along with 15 other people, became trapped in an underwater cave for 2 days. This was in the Penican Plains Cave after a storm caused the main entrance to collapse. This place has also been called the Mount Everest of cave diving. It's such an incredible story that it was made into a movie in 2011 called Sanctum. And unlike the characters in the movie, none of the real victims had high-tech equipment. All they had was radio communication, but luckily they all got out safely, and the story had a happy ending. In 2016, 3 men boarded a 5.8-meter-long rowing boat, also known as a skiff. But along the way, in the middle of the sea, their boat was overturned by the rough weather and ended up on the sand of an island called Fanadik, hundreds of kilometers north of Papua New Guinea. They spent 3 days on the island until an American naval plane saw the big letters HELP written on the palm leaves lying on the sand. A local boat was sent to pick them up, and the rescuers immediately informed their families. After they were reported missing days ago, 2 large cargo ships searched for them together for 17 hours, and a naval plane was sent out. According to the pilots, the island was first spotted because of the fire the men had started. Without that, the rescue workers would not even know the island was there. Timothy Treadwell, also known as the Grizzly Man, was an American bear enthusiast, environmentalist, and documentary filmmaker. He spent extensive periods among grizzly bears in Alaska, studying them and forming close relationships. Timothy's passion for bears led him to spend 13 summers in Katmai National Park, Alaska. His most famous documentary, Grizzly Man, directed by Werner Herzog and released in 2005, recounts his life and death along with his girlfriend. On October 5, 2003, they were both attacked by a bear at their campsite in Katmai National Park. The exact circumstances of the attack and the events leading up to it are still debated and speculated upon, as they never identified which bear precisely attacked them. However, there exists an audio recording of the incident, 15 minutes of the sounds of a bear feeding. Here's another movie based on a real story. Although this one was a little more exaggerated than the others, if you've ever seen the movie 12 Feet Deep, you may be familiar with the story of 2 sisters who got stuck under the canopy of a public swimming pool. The thriller film adds an extra element of urgency when one sister reveals she has diabetes and she needs to take her medicine. In reality, it wasn't about 2 sisters, but a teenage girl in Australia who couldn't get out of the pool. Jamie Molnar, a skier from the United Kingdom, was involved in an incident in Switzerland, where he fell into a crevasse while skiing in Saasfjord. Jamie had been warned about the crevasses before descending the mountain, but misjudged a turn and ended up in the perilous crevice. Fortunately, he was rescued by emergency services and airlifted to the hospital for examination. Miraculously, he emerged unharmed when despite falling 59 feet deep into the crevasse. Video footage captured after the fall shows Jamie communicating via radio with his brother, confirming he was uninjured but needed assistance to get out of the pit. His fall into the crevasse was documented because he had a GoPro camera with him, recording the accident. The video footage shows the inside of the crevasse where he was trapped, and notably how calmly he informed his friends that he had the GoPro running and was capturing everything. Imagine being so terribly stuck that a firefighter got stuck next to you. Due to a misstep, a man got stuck horizontally in a mud pit. The rescue attempt did not go well at first, as one of the firefighters slipped and got stuck in the mud himself. They managed to pull him out with the ropes. The other man was also pulled out of the mud and then taken to the hospital for hypothermia. He was allowed to leave the hospital a few days later. Victoria Cilliers was on her way to doom when she was parachuting over Salisbury Plain, and both her main chute and her reserve had failed her.
She was a qualified free-fall instructor who had made 2,600 successful jumps. So she was surprised when her parachute became uncontrollable. It appeared that her husband, an army sergeant, had tampered with her parachute and removed certain parts. Unfortunately, she didn't get off unscathed, but still managed to survive the fall. Her husband came up with this crazy idea because their marriage wasn't going so well. He also opened a gas tap a month earlier that could have also gone wrong. In the end, the man was sentenced to life imprisonment. Victoria told her story at several talk shows and eventually wrote her own book about it.
In June 2012, graduate student Andrew Oberl made a critical error by crossing between two safety fences at a chimpanzee sanctuary in South Africa while giving a tour of the reserve. Andrew went over an outer fence into a forbidden zone and attempted to move a stone stuck under an inner electric fence, which he believed would shield the chimpanzees. However, this action was perceived by two chimpanzees, Amadeus and Nikki, as a territorial breach. They saw it as a threat and attacked him, dragging him away and causing severe injuries. The attack on Andrew was likely triggered by the chimpanzee's instinct to protect their territory. Fortunately, he survived and recovered. It underscores the importance of respecting safety boundaries and guidelines when interacting with wild animals, especially in sanctuaries or research settings.
There are plenty of places in your home where you can get stuck, but being stuck in the toilet, that must be pretty frightening. Police were called by a man who said a woman named Pam Bab had been refusing to come out of the bathroom for 2 years. According to the story, she had been stuck so badly that the seat of the toilet was sticking to her skin. What a strange story, isn't it?
Alexander Selkirk was a Scottish sailor who became famous for surviving 4 years and 4 months stranded on an uninhabited island. His story served as inspiration for the character Robinson Crusoe in Daniel Defoe's famous novel. In 1704, during a voyage in the South Pacific Ocean, Alexander had a disagreement with the captain of the Cinque Ports and decided to be marooned on an uninhabited island. The island, known as Masa Tierra, now Robinson Crusoe Island, is located off the coast of Chile. His decision to be left on the island proved fateful, as the Cinque Ports did indeed sink with all its crew, except for William Dampier and 7 men off the coast of Peru. During his time on the island, he built shelters, hunted goats for food, and found various fruits and vegetables to sustain himself. His ordeal ended on February 2nd, 1709, when he was rescued by the privateering ship Duke, commanded by Captain Woodes Rogers and pilot William Dampier.
There's a good chance you've heard about the next story from 2018 before. A youth soccer coach and his team planned to spend an hour exploring a cave. The vacation would be 2 weeks long. Just as they went underground, monsoon rains flooded the entrance, and the coach and 12 players became trapped, with nothing more than ropes and flashlights. As they waited for rescue, they drank fresh water from a stalactite. All 12 players and the coach were all eventually rescued. Roy Sullivan, a park ranger in Shenandoah National Park in Virginia, has the Guinness World Record for the person who has been hit the most often by lightning. He was hit 7 times between 1942 and 1977, which was a 1 in 700,000 chance at that time. This earned him the nickname Human Lightning Rod. His first documented hit was in 1942, when he was hiding in a watchtower during a thunderstorm. He was hit when he decided to run outside. Then in 1969, he was hit while driving his truck. The metal body of his car had to protect him, but for some reason, the electricity found its way to his window. A year later, he was hit in his front yard. And the other hits happened in 1972, 1973, 1976, and 77. Roy managed to survive all these events and eventually became 71 years old.
Katherine Chapel, a 29-year-old American tourist, tragically lost her life on June 1, 2015, during a safari in South Africa. While visiting the Lion Park in Johannesburg, she rolled down the passenger window of her safari vehicle to take photos of a group of lions. At that moment, a lioness leaped through the open window and inflicted fatal injuries. Despite attempts by other tourists to scare the lioness away by honking, the attack was swift and catastrophic. Katherine, who made significant contributions to wildlife conservation and raised funds for charity, succumbed to her injuries before paramedics arrived. In her career, she worked on visual effects for films like Godzilla, Divergent, and Captain America: The Winter Soldier, as well as editing for the TV series Game of Thrones.
Peruvian artist Fernando created the particular piece of art he called Making Love. What happened next, however, you won't believe. 22 firefighters had been sent to rescue a young man who got stuck in this statue. However, why the boy decided to crawl into the statue in the first place is unclear.
Ricky Meggie became known for his remarkable survival story after spending 71 days stranded in the rugged Australian outback in 2006. He was discovered on a remote cattle station in the Northern Territory near the border with Western Australia, severely emaciated and malnourished. His survival story is marked by intrigue and conflicting reports. Initially, he claimed car trouble, later asserting he was kidnapped by an armed gang. To survive, he relied on his resourcefulness and bush skills, consuming leeches, insects, snakes, ants, lizards, and edible plants. He sustained himself by drinking water from dams and water holes, crucial during the rainy season when he was stranded, as temperatures in the outback can reach up to 104 degrees Fahrenheit. When rescued, McGee weighed only 99 pounds, and his survival tale remains one of the most remarkable examples of human determination against the relentless forces of nature.
If you've seen the movie 127 Hours from 2010, you might know this story. The lead role in the film was played by James Franco. The story is about Aaron who was canyoning, an activity in which you follow a river that runs through a gorge. Aaron did this alone and got stuck between a falling 880-pound or 400-kilogram rock and the cliff. His passion was to climb all the mountains in Colorado, including the 14er, which is 4,600 yards or 4,200 meters high. What he brought with him were ropes, a liter of water, pieces of chocolate, headphones, and a video camera. There was no reception at the location where he was, and he hadn't told anyone where he was going. He was stuck for days, but found a way to save himself by leaving a part of his forearm behind. Eventually, he was found by a Dutch family who helped him and alerted the emergency services. You might think that these events only happen in movies, but these really happened. One of the most tragic stories of people who were trapped is that of three men, Clifford Olds, Luis Buddy Costin, and Ronald Endicott. They became trapped in the hull of a Navy ship, 131 feet or 40 meters below the surface of the water. According to protocol, parts of the ship were sealed so it would not capsize. For 16 days, other crew members helplessly heard the tapping for help, but could do nothing. Unfortunately, this story does not have a happy ending, as the three men never made it out alive.
Fred Merkel, a first baseman for the New York Giants, became infamous for a crucial mistake known as Merkel's boner on September 23, 1908. During a pivotal game against the Chicago Cubs, with the score tied and a runner on third base, Merkel hit a single that seemed to score the winning run. However, he failed to touch second base and left the field after seeing the apparent winning run cross home plate. Johnny Evers, the Cubs' second baseman known for strict adherence to the rules, retrieved a ball from the home plate umpire and tagged Merkel out at second base. The game was ruled a tie, and the Giants eventually lost the championship to the Cubs. This incident became one of the most memorable and controversial plays in baseball history, casting a lasting shadow over Merkel's reputation. He often received unflattering nicknames like Bonehead and Leather Skull.
Aaron Ralston's story was filmed and played by James Franco. This event shows how far people will go to survive. Aaron had begun an 8-hour hike in Blue John Canyon in Utah, USA. A misstep caused him to dislodge a rock weighing about 800 pounds or 363 kilograms, trapping his hand and forearm. With dwindling supplies, he lasted 5 days and eventually found a way to free himself, but had to leave his forearm behind.
How audacious can one be? Probably not as audacious as Michael Fagan, who broke into the bedroom of Queen Elizabeth II to prove he could. Michael, a British citizen, gained notoriety for breaking into Queen Elizabeth II's bedroom at Buckingham Palace. On July 9, 1982, he scaled the 14-foot perimeter wall of Buckingham Palace, equipped with revolving spikes and barbed wire, and he climbed up a drain pipe. Despite an alarm sensor detecting his movements, police mistakenly believed the alarm was faulty and disabled it. Michael wandered the corridors for several minutes before reaching the royal apartments. He broke a glass ashtray, cut his hand, and entered the Queen's bedroom around 7 a.m., waking her up in the process. Michael, reportedly drunk during the incident, conversed with the Queen about personal grievances and his dissatisfaction with the government. He spent approximately 10 minutes in the Queen's bedroom before security personnel arrived. Michael described the palace's security as weak and claimed to have broken into Buckingham Palace twice, with the first incident occurring a month prior to the bedroom break-in. What's the biggest mistake you've ever made? Let me know in the comments. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos we've made, click one on the screen or take a look at the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.